Gen X, we haven't done anything for you. We don't care. You know, that's rich. Really cute, I tell you. I mean, let me ask you something. Why should we care? Why should we sacrifice for you when we've already spent the last 40 years quietly breaking ourselves just to keep the whole damn mess from crumbling down all around all of us? You see, that's the thing about Gen X. We don't scream about what we do. We don't demand a frickin' parade every time we show up and handle our business. We don't whine for validation, and we sure as hell don't expect anyone to pat us on the back when we just do what's expected to be done. Because that's the way we were raised. And I mean, you've been standing on our shoulders your whole lives. But now that you don't seem to see the effort we put in, you assume we haven't been putting in any work. Well, let's talk about that work. I mean, you like your internet? Yeah, we built that. Like your little digital playground where you get to bitch and moan about how unfair life is? We built that too. We took the chaos of the Cold War, the economic crashes, the dot-com booms, the housing crisis, and we took every single disaster thrown at us and held the damn line. And guess what? We did it without crying about how hard it was, because it was hard, and we still put our heads down and pushed forward. And now, after all that, we're supposed to just keep sacrificing? For what? For people who tell us we haven't done enough? For people who look at us like we're some outdated relics who should just step aside? Yeah, you know what? Screw you. You don't want us? Fine. You don't think we matter? That's cool. But don't you dare come crawling back when the power goes out, the system you take for granted starts to crack, and you suddenly realize you don't have the skills or the grit or the spine to fix it. Because we're done. We're done carrying the weight while you tell us it's never enough. So go ahead, keep talking, keep acting like we haven't given enough. But just remember, when it all falls apart, it won't be us asking for help. It'll be you, wondering why the world doesn't work the way it used to. And by then, well, let's just say you had your chance. Oh, and don't think you're out of the woods yet of an ass chewing, because you know what really burns my ass with all this? It's not the ungratefulness, it's the entitlement. The expectation that we should want to keep setting ourselves on fire to keep everybody else warm. Like for some way that we owe it to you. Let me be real clear. We don't owe you shit. You think you're struggling? You think life's hard? Try growing up without all them safety nets and the participation trophies. You know, no safe spaces for anybody. I mean, try getting your ass kicked by life and realizing no one was coming to save you. That's what built us. That's what made us who we are. One of the most self-reliant generations to ever walk the damn earth. The key point there, I said one of. The greatest generation was obviously the greatest generation. But sure, go ahead. Keep looking down on us like we're just some grumpy old relics who don't get it. Keep thinking we're just out of touch. Because while you're whining about how life isn't fair, we're the ones who still get up every morning, handle business, and we don't need an audience to do it. And when you finally wake up and realize you need people who actually get things done, and you'll be looking around for us, but by then, we might just be done picking up your slack. So good luck with that. Now let's break this down even further with a little academic candor that you might not be ready for. Our generation, Gen X, was definitely forged in that crucible of societal neglect and economic turbulence. We inherited a world that was rough around the edges, where stability wasn't a given, but a privilege. I mean, we learned early that complacency was the enemy of survival, while the boomer generation basked in post-war optimism and handouts of cultural revolution. We were left to navigate that labyrinth of fiscal uncertainty, technological upheaval, and massive geopolitical tension. We were the original digital pioneers, the architects of the cyber age. And while you now take for granted this instantaneous connectivity of a global network, we wrestled with clunky dial-up modems and the nascent promise of a wired world. I mean, we understood that progress isn't a luxury, it's a hard-won necessity. We built systems, laid down infrastructure, and yes, sacrificed our personal time and sanity to create something lasting. And now when you see the fruits of our labor, you scoff and you claim that we've done nothing. I mean, that is a fucking insult. Think about it. While you're busy creating that online persona and lamenting the state of the world in a series of sound bites, I mean, we're still out there, shoulder deep in the gritty work of actual change. I mean, we've absorbed the hard lessons of economic depressions, corporate greed, the political backstabbing, all while developing an ethos of self-reliance that has become our trademark. Our resilience wasn't an accidental byproduct of hardship. It was a deliberate, painstaking cultivation of a survival instinct that many of you seem to have lost along the way. Let's dive deeper into this generational divide we have here. I mean, that narrative that we're somehow obsolete or irrelevant, I mean, it's not only misguided, it's a flagrant misrepresentation of the work we've done. Our experiences have provided us with this education that no university could ever fully encapsulate. I mean, we learned from the school of hard knocks where the curriculum was written in adversity and the examinations were life itself. Our lessons were not found in textbooks, but in the scars of economic recessions, that grind of relentless work, and the quiet determination to keep the wheels of progress turning against all odds. And for those of you who fancy yourself as connoisseurs of modern life, let me impart a dose of reality. While you decry the past as a time of scarcity and struggle, you conveniently forget that it was this very struggle that forged the backbone of the modern world. I mean, the resilience we honed during those years is the reason why conveniences you enjoy today exist in the first place. And yet, rather than honing this legacy, many of you prefer to dwell on the perceived shortcomings of our generation. I mean, you conveniently ignore that the rapid technological and social advancements you so relish were built on the foundations that we laid, often at the expense of our own well-being. Now, let's get a little bit academic here. I mean, something even the most entitled among you might need to comprehend. In sociology and economics, resilience is defined as the ability to adapt in the face of adversity, to bounce back from setbacks with renewed vigor. And we Gen X are the embodiment of that concept. Our generation did not wait for handouts or societal validation. We adapted, innovated, persevered. I mean, the theories of social capital and human resilience are not abstract ideas for us. They were lived experiences. We turned the seemingly insurmountable challenges of our youth into a blueprint for success. And if that makes us tough or gruff, then so be it. I mean, we wear our scars like medals of honor. Let's talk about self-reliance. I mean, this isn't just a quaint ideal from a bygone era. It's a practical necessity that we mastered. I mean, the American ideal of self-reliance, championed by thinkers like Emerson and Thoreau, isn't just a literary concept. It's a way of life that demands personal accountability and the refusal to be coddled. While others sought refuge in the comforts of an ever-expanding safety net, we learned to stand on our own 2 feet. We refused to be defined by our circumstances. And I mean, instead, we defined ourselves by our ability to overcome them. And I mean, and now as you flounder in this sea of entitlement and dependency, it becomes painfully clear that the lessons we learned are exactly what this world desperately needs. And yet you'd rather go on and ignore them. And we need to get real about entitlement. I mean, in today's culture, there's this alarming trend, this notion that one is owed something simply by virtue of existence. I mean, entitlement isn't just a buzzword. It's this corrosive mindset that undermines the very fabric and hard work of perseverance. I mean, look around at a generation that expects rewards without the requisite sweat equity, that demands comfort without the corresponding sacrifice. Meanwhile, we're left holding the bag, carrying the weight of progress on our backs. And then when push comes to shove, when the very systems you rely on begin to crumble, you will find that entitlement is about as useful as a paper umbrella in a fucking hurricane. The truth is, entitlement breeds mediocrity. It erodes the incentive to strive, to innovate, to confront challenges head on. I mean, Gen X were raised to understand that nothing in life is handed to you on a silver platter. Instead, you have to fight for every inch of progress, every scrap of success. And if that means getting our hands dirty, then so be it. Our generation didn't have the luxury of counting on an ever-present safety net or waiting for the proverbial handout. We learned early that the world doesn't owe you a damn thing. And neither do we. Look, I'm not just spouting off catchphrases here. There's this deeper, almost academic irony in this whole debacle. I mean, our generation's struggles aren't just about personal hardship. They're emblematic of a larger systemic issue. I mean, we've been the unsung architects of modern society. That quiet force that maintains stability during times of unprecedented change. Our efforts, our sacrifices, they have been the bedrock upon which current conveniences are built. And yet, in the name of progress and novelty, you choose to dismiss our contributions as if they're relics of another bygone era. Consider the notion of sacrificial labor. From a sociological perspective, it's this concept that describes the invisible, often uncelebrated work that holds society together. That's us. We've been the sacrificial lambs of progress, working behind the scenes, ensuring that the machinery of civilization runs smoothly. Our contributions may not be as glamorous as the latest tech startup or as flashy as viral internet trends, but they are no less vital. We kept the lights on, both literally and figuratively, while others enjoyed the novelty of an ever-changing cultural landscape. And now, here comes the kicker. Despite everything, we're expected to continue this charade indefinitely. The world demands more of us today, even as it fails to acknowledge what we've already endured. It's as if our sacrifices have become a baseline expectation, a prerequisite for participation in this grand, dysfunctional experiment called modern life. But let me be clear. There comes a point when the cost of sacrifice exceeds the value of recognition. And that point has long since been reached. There's an inherent hypocrisy in the way our society functions today. On one hand, you praise innovation, creativity, and progress. And on the other, you demand comfort, entitlement, and an absence of hardship. It's a contradiction that defies logic and defies the spirit of genuine achievement. You want the best of both worlds, rapid advancement without the accompanying struggle, success without the grind. But history, hard as it may be, teaches us that true progress is born in extreme adversity, of relentless effort against all odds. So here's some truth. If you are going to survive and thrive in this world, you need to understand that nothing worthwhile comes without sacrifice. Our generation didn't get where we are by taking the easy way out. We were compelled by circumstances to develop a work ethic so resilient that it borders on the mythic. And yet, today's culture seems content to worship comfort over challenge. It's a tragic irony that the very qualities which built our society are now being undermined by a generation that's more focused on self-indulgence than on genuine, hard-won accomplishments. You can continue to criticize, to belittle, to demand more from those of us who laid the foundation, but let me ask you this. When the inevitable reckoning comes, when the systems you've grown so complacent in begin to fail, who will be left to pick up the pieces? It sure as hell won't be the generation that has never known the value of struggle. It won't be the generation that expects the world to bend to their whims without the requisite grind. It'll be the ones who understand that progress is earned through pain, perseverance, and an unyielding refusal to back down in the face of adversity. If they're still around. So here's my message. A final, unfiltered warning to all those who underestimate the power, the resilience, and the sheer will of Gen X. We are the ones who have weathered the storms that would have broken lesser souls. We have seen the rise and fall of economic empires, navigated the treacherous waters of technological revolution, and emerged battered but unbowed. Our scars are not marks of defeat, they are badges of honor. They testify to the fact that we have not only survived, but have actively shaped the world around us. But let's be brutally honest. There is a limit. There comes a moment when even the most resilient spirit grows weary of being taken for granted. And when the endless demands for sacrifice turn into this intolerable burden, even we must draw a line in the sand. And if you think that line is far off in some distant future, you are dead wrong. The world is changing, and the tolerance for self-sacrifice without acknowledgement is rapidly dwindling at the very moment today. We are not inexhaustible. Our energy, our time, our goodwill are finite. Imagine a future where the very systems that once depended on our steadfast contributions begin to crumble because the architects of their success decide they've had enough. Picture the scenario where the foundational pillars of progress built through sweat, determination, and relentless work are abandoned in favor of fleeting trends and transient comforts. That future, it isn't some dystopian fantasy. It's a very real possibility, and it is in the middle of this cycle. That future isn't some dystopian fantasy. It's a very real possibility. If this cycle of entitlement and unearned praise continues unchecked, thankfully, we are starting to see some small changes. So here's a clarion call to everyone who's ever dismissed our efforts. Take a good, long look at the legacy of Gen X. Recognize that every convenience, every technological marvel, every moment of progress that is being paid for in the currency of relentless struggle and sacrifice. And understand that if you come to belittle and undervalue these contributions, you're not only setting yourselves up for failure, you're dooming the very future you claim to cherish. Let's step back for a moment and consider the paradox at the heart of this entire debate. Progress, by its very nature, is paradoxical. It demands innovation and change, yet it is built on the enduring principles of hard work, resilience, and sacrifice. There's an inherent tension between the desire for rapid advancement and the need for a solid, tested foundation. And we have been the bridge between these two worlds. A generation that straddles the line between the raw, unvarnished realities of the past and the glossy, often superficial promises of the future. In many ways, our struggles have been an ongoing experiment in human endurance. Every setback, every failure, every moment of doubt was met with a response not of resignation, but of fierce determination. We learned that the only constant in life is change, and that the only way to thrive amidst that change is to embrace it fully, to harness it, and to transform it into something better. This isn't just a lesson in survival, it's a lesson in evolution. And as long as there are those who would dismiss our contributions, there will be a need for voices like ours, voices that remind the world that progress is hard-earned, and that the cost of entitlement is measured not in dollars, but in the erosion of our collective resilience. So here we stand at the crossroads of past sacrifice and future uncertainty. And the unvarnished truth is this: Gen X is not a relic to be discarded at the first sign of modern inconvenience. We are the enduring backbone of a society built on sweat, determination, and an unwavering refusal to yield to mediocrity. And while the siren call of entitlement may seduce some into complacency, let it be known that there is a reckoning on the horizon, a reckoning that will demand accountability from all who have ever taken our labor for granted. And I'm not here to mince words or to offer empty platitudes. I'm here to remind you that every moment of comfort, every technological marvel, every ounce of progress has a price. A price that has been paid in blood, sweat, and the tears by those of us who never had the luxury of an easy life. And if that price is too high for you to acknowledge, then perhaps it's time you reconsider your expectations. Now, to the ungrateful, the entitled, and the dismissive, understand this. When the systems you depend on begin to falter, when the conveniences you so casually enjoy are suddenly stripped away from you, you will have no one left to blame but yourselves. We will not be waiting in the wings, ready to pick up the pieces of your shattered illusions. We are done with that charade. We are done with this endless cycle of sacrifice without recognition. We have reached our limit. And if you continue down this path, you will force our hand. Now, this isn't just a rant. It's an intellectual and emotional manifesto, a declaration of the principles that have guided us through decades of hardship. I mean, it is a reminder that progress is not a given. It is something that must be fought for, nurtured, and at times defended with every ounce of our being. And as long as there are those who refuse to see the value of genuine effort, as long as there are those who choose entitlement over hard-earned success, that struggle will continue. So here I give you the final word from the front lines of this ongoing battle. We are Gen X. We built this world. We sustained it, and we carried its burdens with the level of grit and determination that should serve as a beacon for generations to come. But we are not immortal. Our patience has limits. Our resolve is formidable, but not infinite. And there will come a day when the unrecognized sacrifices of the past demand their due. And until that day comes, we will keep our heads high, our resolve unbroken, and our message clear. If you want progress, if you want a future built on the firm foundation of hard work and perseverance, you need to stop expecting miracles from those who have already given everything. It's time for you to step up, to stop demanding endless sacrifice without respect or reward, and to finally understand that the true cost of progress is measured in more than just dollars or conveniences. It is measured in the very soul of society. And I leave you with this thought. As raw and unfiltered the truth itself is, in the end, the world isn't going to run itself. The progress you take for granted, the systems that keep your life humming along smoothly, were forged in fires of relentless adversity by those who refuse to bow down to the pressures of a complacent society. And if you continue to ignore that reality, if you continue to demand more without understanding the cost, then don't be surprised when the very foundation of everything you know begins to crumble. So I say, let this be a call to arms, not for blind rebellion, but for a sober recognition of the debt owed to those who have labored in silence, who have borne the weight of progress on their shoulders for decades on end. Understand that every achievement, every advancement, every moment of stability is the result of sacrifices you might never fully comprehend. And if that truth stings, if it forces you to reevaluate your own role in this grand tapestry of struggle and success, then perhaps, just perhaps, you'll learn to appreciate the bitter, unyielding reality of what it means to truly build a future. So here's my absolute final word, plain and unvarnished. The era of unthinking entitlement is coming to an end. We have carried the torch far too long, and we're not going to keep doing it in silence. We are the generation that understood that progress is a hard-fought battle, that nothing of value is ever handed to you on a silver platter. And if you can't see that, if you continue to dismiss our sacrifices as irrelevant, then don't be surprised when the world you take for granted turns its back on you. And no, this is not a plea for recognition. It's not a request for applause. It's a declaration of fact, a reminder that the true architects of the modern world are not those who shout the loudest on social media, but those who have quietly shouldered the burdens of history and emerged stronger for it. And I mean, if you ever find yourself in a moment of crisis, when the structures you rely on falter, remember this. We are the ones who built them. We are the ones who sustained them. And we are the ones who will no longer be taken for granted. You had your chance to acknowledge your contributions, to honor the sacrifices that have kept the world spinning. And now, as you stand on the precipice of a future that may be defined by your own inaction, the choice is yours. Embrace the hard truth. Learn the value of genuine sacrifice, or continue down this path of entitlement and watch as everything you hold dear crumbles into absolute oblivion. Because in the end, it's not about bitterness or anger. It's about accountability. It is about recognizing that progress is a collective endeavor built on unwavering determination of those who refuse to back down. And while you may continue to criticize and belittle, know this. Our legacy is not one of weakness or complacency. It is a legacy of unyielding strength, forged in that crucible of hardship, tempered by resolves that refuses to be broken. So to the naysayers, the entitled, the dismissive, I leave you with this last truth. When the day comes that you need real solutions, when the conveniences of modern life vanish in the blink of reality, remember that it was us who paved the way, and you're not ready to acknowledge that debt, then be prepared to face the consequences of a future built on the ruins of your own inaction. This is the uncompromising reality of Gen X, a testament to the resilience and sacrifice, the enduring spirit of those who dared to build something lasting out of chaos. And as long as there are those willing to do the work to face the brutal truths of life head on, that legacy of our generation will live on. But make no mistake, we are not invincible. Our strength comes from the relentless grind, from the battles fought in the dark and the victories earned. And when our patience finally runs out, you'll find that the price of your entitlement is a debt that you can no longer ignore. So respect the work, honor the sacrifice, and understand that the true measures of progress is not what is given freely, but in what is earned through sheer unyielding determination. That's the legacy of Gen X. It's a legacy that will continue long after the noise of entitlement has faded off into silence.